Hey everyone, it's Brett Hornby here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel here, and at least in the short term here, I want to at least put a bow on my game memories phase here. As when I was planning out all my personal vlogs here, I decided I wanted to just go over some game memories here. So here we are after personal vlog number 68 here. This is where I'm going to be talking about game memories overall and I've missed here. To do another sports fan or coach term here, as I broke down the game tape or my videos of my previous gaming memories, personal vlogs here. I also have it up in this playlist here of all the gaming memories I've done of all the systems that I've had here. However, I definitely wound up missing a lot of titles here, and I figure in this personal vlog to at least put a bow on my gaming memories here is let's go over titles I missed here, as it just didn't come onto my mind here as I was recording them all, and I knew it was inevitable here. I know in the later videos there I actually had some collections in my shelf there where I have the titles there, but I still missed some here, and I needed to go over my videos and find game lists and jot everything down here, so I have my list with me to make sure I cover everything. But before I do that, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey here, home of the Flames, Stampeders, Roughnecks, and Hitmen here, just make sure you hit like, subscribe, and follow along with the bell icon. I mostly talk about Calgary sports, do game recaps, major stories on all the teams, and I do personal vlogs, attempt at comedy as well. If I share experiences, let's say at a sporting event, let's say at a Stampeders game, for example, pull up my smartphone, and as well when I'm on holidays. So if that sounds like anything interested you want to watch here, and maybe I'll throw in an odd random video here and there. Just make sure you like, subscribe, and follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey here. And one of the things that this Calgary sports fan's journey did when he was much younger and had a lot more time to play video games was playing video games to eventually have these, hence gaming memories here. So let's get started on going over titles that I've missed overall. I mean, I definitely got all the the obvious big titles, like the Super Marios, the Sonic the Hedgehogs, as well as Crash Bandicoot when I had a little bit of the PlayStation there, as well as Legend of Zelda's there, and made my debate on what I think is the best Zelda game that I have on my previous videos there, and I've also became a big sucker for, obviously sports games, with the Maddens, the NHLs, Major League Baseball, as well as the odd NBA game, and I definitely became a sucker of old classic games with the compilations here, but yeah, I couldn't believe when I was going over the videos or game tape for the sake of being the spirit of a sports fan here. There were definitely a lot of things that were missed here, and now I've got to bring attention here, and let's go over some titles here that I missed, and then the last part is I'll go over future of gaming for me, as it's still in my blood. I just don't have time to play video games as much anymore unless you want to experience other things. So let's start off with the NES here. I mean, game memories overall that I missed here. I forgot to mention for the NES here, and this game title seems to gets bashed about, but it's a pretty good game. It was the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game there. It's definitely had its challenges there, and you have to follow along. You could play each of the 4 Ninja Turtles there that came out. I think the game came out in 1987 here. I mean, I know the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are still a thing now for kids today, but I definitely followed along and watched the cartoon there. But it was actually a fun game, the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game there. All I say is make sure you have Donatello. He's definitely the most useful one of the 4 there, with his long wooden spear there. But he also had Leonardo, Raphael, and Michelangelo there, and each had different elements there. So I definitely missed the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. Then also the second one, the arcade game there. That definitely is a classic there, and got ported onto home consoles there. So I definitely Couldn't believe I overlooked that. I also couldn't believe I overlooked this one. But on the Nintendo here, I think this is the best pinball game of all time on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and I still have fun playing it today and watching videos on YouTube. It was made by HAL Laboratories Rollerball. Yeah, Rollerball. It's that 4-level table there of New York City there. That, I think, is the best electronic pinball game of all time there. And it definitely is very underrated there, so I missed out on mentioning Rollerball the first time here. And then the next game here, I had it. Looking back on it, it's definitely not as good here. The Ghostbusters. I mean, it's kind of repetitive there. And then also I remember renting the second Ghostbusters. Actually, it was HAL Laboratories that made that game, and it's notoriously not as good. And it was a side scroller, but you know, it was still capitalizing on the Ghostbusters movie there, the original Ghostbusters there. And then I didn't mention this, the Adventure Island games there that Hudson Soft made. There was 3 Adventure Island games there. It was all fun and had its own unique adventures there. But Adventure Island, that's definitely, you know, underrated. Doesn't get highlighted as much on the Nintendo Entertainment System there. And, you know, maybe I don't like eggplants. I just didn't like the taste of it here. I don't know if I can blame it on the Adventure Island there, but you know what, the eggplant there, it's, you know, you hit an egg and the vegetable follows you and drains your energy there. Yeah, I'll blame not liking eggplants on Adventure Island there. And then I actually had fun with this, and now you can look back on it and thinking, wasn't that great? Was the WWF WrestleMania there. That's the one where you get to first play as a wrestler there and you go through a tournament there. I know there was other WWF WrestleMania games there, but I'm talking about that first one there that you're in the ring there, and you know, you get to play either the Macho Man or the $1 Million Man or Hulk Hogan. So yeah, that's it was great at the time. This was, you know, over 30 years ago. Definitely is dated, but yeah, WWF WrestleMania there. And then I got 1942 there, you know, a war game. It's a war shooter there, Spirit of World War II there. And this one was interesting, was the 3D Roadrunner there. That, you know, that one's definitely one of the underrated titles there. And also, if you had the, you know, the old 3D glasses, you know, the blue and red, and you can actually play that in theoretically in 3D there. And I also got Balloon Fight, you know, one of the classic coin-op games there that was ported over. So I have that there. You got Base Wars, as a robotic baseball game. I actually remember owning this game here, and I do actually still enjoy the odd Looney Tunes here. I had the Bugs Bunny birthday blowout there. That was a so-so game there, but you know, you get to play as Bug Bunny there, and you know, definitely it was like the bosses were attacking you, and then I think at the end there they eventually they all were friends in the birthday party there. It was weird. I remember renting this game, RC Pro Am. That was an underrated game there, and definitely you know, collecting the trophies there. You know, it's a very deep game for an NES game. I can't believe I missed this one, and definitely you know, it's the same company, Capcom, that makes this from the Mega Man games. DuckTales. I didn't own this game, but it was definitely an awesome game. Renting there, your Scrooge McDuck there, and yeah, definitely is one of the best NES games there. I know they had a relaunch title there, but yeah, I can't believe I missed DuckTales the first time there, and you know, it definitely had that Mega Man feel in the soundtrack too. I know people are most notorious for the Moon theme there. And of course, I got to mention Donkey Kong, you know, the original Donkey Kong with the, you know, Jumpman. And then plus, you know, there was Donkey Kong Jr., Donkey Kong 3 there, and then I remember there was a math game there. So, yeah, you got the original Donkey Kong there, and it was in Donkey Kong 64 that you get to play that original Donkey Kong there. Of course, you got to throw in Double Dragon, you know, beat him up there. Same with like Kung Fu, I remember briefly playing that. And then I got Excite Bike. So definitely is a fun game there. Excite Bike, you know, create your own track there, and eventually was ported as the NES Classic Series there. Actually, I do have Harris on here. I'm not too sure how that got on there. I don't remember exactly what that game is. But then you got Ice Climber. That definitely was another classic one. You know, climbing up platforms there. And then I remember playing Side Pocket. That was just a pool game. I can't believe I missed this game, and I actually own it. It was Mike Tyson's Punch Out there. That definitely, it was definitely a nice, challenging game there. And that's the only Punch Out game I actually played. I never played Super Punch Out, and I just looked it up on the Wii there because the Wii had the version of it. I like the cutscenes on there, and that Canadian guy is funny on there. I think his name is Bear Hugger, but your Mac, Little Mac, and you got the the trainer there. Pinball Quest, that was definitely an interesting one. I rented it, I never owned it. Kind of mashes in pinball, but Rollerball is the best pinball game there. Of course, there's Popeye there. That was a arcade port there. Good old Popeye the Sailor there. I didn't own this one, but Q-Bird, that was kind of just a wacky character and jumping on the blocks there. That's an arcade port there. I remember having this one, Rampage. It was definitely an arcade port. It's not the same as the Williams one that I have on those arcade treasures there, but that was definitely a fun, deep game there where you're bashing buildings there. Same with Road Blasters. I had that game too, and it's a racing game, but you equip your car with weapons and you try to advance through there. And then I remember Rockin' Ball. I think that's another, kind of a 50s malt shop pinball game there. And then it had the same kind of the rock and roll theme here, Snake Rattle Roll. I remember renting that one. It was a interesting, action there. I had this game, Skate or Die. I had the first one there. The second one wasn't as good there, but Skate or Die was kind of an extreme game there. And then Top Gun. Well, I know the Angry Video Game nerd bashes that game and how you freaking land on there. I remember just renting it. Then a couple more games on here. I remember Vegas Dream was just a casino play him. And then there was the original Wayne Gretzky's Hockey. I think that was the first hockey game on the NES that actually, I had Wayne Gretzky's Hockey, where you got to see the actual team names and the players where it had licenses right there. And then this is late in the console here. I remember playing Yoshi's Cookie there. It was another puzzle game here. So that's quite a list of NES games that I missed out on that I mentioned in the first Game of Memories there. So, shout out to all those games there that provided some good or bad memories based on either owned or rented there. There's that. Now for the Sega Genesis here, and some of these titles also tie in with the Super Nintendo here, but I actually own the Sega Genesis here, but going through some other titles here. I remember renting Blaster Master there. I think that's also was on the Nintendo Entertainment System and Super Nintendo there. I think you're just a little car and you go through a platform there. Caesar's Palace, that was just another casino game, fun casino game. And there's Cue Ball. I remember that was another pool game. And then I remember Dragon's Fury. That's another martial arts game. But I casually only liked this one. Apparently it was one of the bigger titles, one of the launch titles for the Sega Genesis was Echo the Dolphin there. And it was okay. I know my sister would definitely like Dolphins a lot more there. But I think I have that in the Sega Genesis collection on the PlayStation Portable there. But it's an okay game, but I wasn't huge into the Echo Dolphin. I know it was one of the earlier Sega Genesis games there. There was F1 World Championship, a racing game with the Formula One there. And then one of my favorite musical artists, who, sadly passed away over 10 years ago, Michael Jackson. Although the game it was so-so at best. It was kind of trying to mix in action with his music there, and it definitely had that 16-bit of his hits there, Beat It and Smooth Criminal there. But Michael Jackson's Moonwalker was a so-so game at best. And I just, it was one of those things where it's like, oh, it's Michael Jackson. You like Michael Jackson, you should like the game. But it doesn't always work out that way. Of course, Micro Machines, I remember playing that. It's a racing game, but you're just small toy cars. I remember that being a big toy in the 90s growing up there. And then, of course, I had Olympic Gold, and that was with the Barcelona Summer Olympics there. A lot of these games that I mentioned were rentals here. Of course, it was a crime that I didn't mention Outrun on the Sega Genesis there. That's a classic, racing game where it's a time attack and try to advance and pick your own adventure there. I think I also briefly, back before, it was easier to download games and you had to purchase them, but I remember having an Outrun on my flip phone back when I had an LG there 16 years ago. Then there's Primal Rage. It was kind of that fighting game Rage with dinosaurs. It was a so-so fighting game at best there. And then of course SimCity 2000. I definitely loved SimCity, and I also spent time playing SimCity over my friend's place on his computer there. But SimCity 2000 I think was definitely the best SimCity version, and still like that. And then I remember this game. It was a rip-off of Sonic the Hedgehog. It was actually called Socket. It had a nice soundtrack there, and you're a little, I forget the name of the character, but you collect lightning bolts. It's a rip-off of Sonic, obviously, but, maybe with me being working in the electrical engineering industry there, maybe that's what inspired me to go that way. That video game alone changed my path there, but, and then there's T2 Terminator, the arcade game. I know there was a couple Terminator games I played on the Sega Genesis, and once again, it's another one of those movies and games don't mix, and I remember those games weren't really that good, but yeah, it was just a rental. I remember owning this game and eventually got tired of it, going back to Looney Tunes here, was the Tasmania there. There was definitely some good and bad in that game, but it had its fun until I played it out. And then I went back to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles there. I know there was that Heist on Heist there. I forget there was another Travel in Time there. I think this was on both the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo there, but it was just another continuation of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles there. And then, of course, there were a lot of virtuals. There was the virtual racing, which at the time it looked like, wow, that looks realistic. Now it looks really, really dated. But it was, 16-bit era. That was a lot then. Virtual fighting, that started that before it advanced into the Sega Genesis there. And actually, I remember a virtual Bart, playing a virtual Bart as a rental there. That was one of the better Sega or Simpsons games after, when I had the Space Mutants game, and then there was that Travel in Time. Going back to the NES there, yeah, those Simpsons games weren't that well there. And then the last one, this was actually on both platforms, Zoop. It was just an interesting puzzle game there. It just had a weird name. And then on the Super Nintendo here, well, I've got a Bust a Move. It was on many consoles there with the balls there. Another puzzle game there. I played that many times with many iterations there. Of course, on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, the Donkey Kong Countries, the 3 titles there. There was the Diddy Kong's Adventure number 2, and then there was like Dixie's Trouble 3 there, if I remember right. And of course, the Earthworm Jim. That was definitely a strange, interesting game there. That I know I have that on the Virtual Console that was on both systems here. And then SNES, the original F-Zero. I remember playing that, and I think that actually is the best F-Zero game. And then the last one, well, being a bowler myself, there was Super Bowling there. So that was kind of that 16-bit there. I mean, a lot of the titles that were on the Sega Genesis here were somewhat also on the Super Nintendo there. So those are the couple more gaming memories there, both either owned or mostly of these titles that I'm rattling off here are actually rented here. So but it's just that there's a lot more games that I, you can only remember so much, and if you try to remember it all, there'd be a lot of in videos there. You don't want to do that, and don't want to cut too many things. So that's that. So now I'm going to move on to the PlayStation One here, the first PlayStation game here. Definitely a lot of these titles I actually rented, and a few of them I owned here. But of course, you forgot to mention Twisted Metal there. I mean, there was a couple versions there, but I heard you were playing the first one there. I think I played the second one, but the first one was definitely the best one of what I played. I mean, if you look back at that person's blog, I only had the PlayStation 1 for a couple of years there because I just had too many issues with disc scratching. The way it was designed and the laser, that's why it wasn't as good of a system in my mind, and I had to go back to the Nintendo 64 there. And of course, I forgot to mention this, Jumping Flash. You're the robotic rabbits. Jumping Flash 1 and 2 there. That was a fun fun game there, especially how it opens up in the first levels in both those games. And then once you finish it, there's extra, and yeah, Jumpy Flash, I forgot to mention that, 1 and 2 there. And then, of course, being a bowler here, and I know I have it on the PlayStation Portal from the PlayStation here, 10 Pin Alley. That's actually a fun, cartoonish bowling game there. And what makes that game really funny is when you don't execute the controls well and how the players, don't bowl the ball right, or it's like, they somehow will throw the ball, but it's stuck, and then somehow the ball, holds their weight and lets them do cartwheels, or I remember, I know the one guy is Chucky there. I know it's funny if you purposely, when you're about to pile black and he reaches back and then the ball is behind him and then he goes, like how did it get there? Sometimes the blooper animation's just funny in that game, but it takes a while to figure out the right way. But 10 Pin Alley is definitely an underrated game. And then there was a chess game that, virtual chess there. And then there actually was a game called D, which is a horror game. I know I briefly rented that. And that was the same with Extreme Pinball for the original PlayStation there. But I still think for electronic pinball, minus the Williams Gottlieb collection where we're based on actual tables, I actually think Rollerball is the best electronic pinball game I've ever played. And that's, saying a lot there. There's been too many pinball games. I mean, Sonic Spinball, I guess you can say, is second there because it's themed that way. But then I'm also going back to the PlayStation 1 here. You got Fade to Black. That was definitely a dark, shooter game. I mean, it was kind of a Doom, but it wasn't totally Doom based on that, but it was definitely a kind of a clone of that. Of course, I have Gex, the original Gex, and then Gex Enter the Gecko there, which had more, the clever lines that he said there with pop culture. Because I eventually had the Gex 64, but Gex Enter the Gecko, there was more capacity to put all that funny stuff, chic stuff on the disc there. And then I got High Octane, which is definitely one of the racing games, futuristic racing games. I remember comparing that to one of my friends who had a computer that was PC gaming there. He had the same version, so we kind of compared the two. And of course, the PC one had a lot more depth to it, but it was relatively the same game there. And then Mega Man 8, and I forgot to mention that. That's where I kind of got reintroduced back to Mega Man there, because I know it was on the Sega Saturn there, but I remember liking Mega Man 8, and I still got to say Mega Man belongs in the original 8-bit form there, but it was kind of nice to relive that, even though it wasn't critically acclaimed as well, but it was still, it had the classic 2D elements to it, but there was definitely some elements annoying in that game, but it was a great, solid title. And then you got Pac-Man World, it definitely was an upgrade from, evolutionized from just the maze there. So that was definitely fun there. And then you had R4 Ridge Racer, definitely was a more customizable Ridge Racer. It took that same formula and made it more customizable there. And then you had the Rampage World Tour, which was, kind of just a graduation from Rampage there. Although I still like the original one. And then Rayman, especially the Great Escape #2, that's basically the classic that everyone is to go to there. And then Ridge Racer, which is the classic racing game there, which you've seen so many of that. And then there's Road Rash, the definitely the racing game with a little fighting there. And then I remember Soul Blade, which is kind of a Tekken clone, but they apparently market that as, if you thought Tekken was tough, try this fighting game. And it's the teener version of the Mortal Kombat's. And then you got Test Drive Off-Road, just another racing game on the road there. Then my like for simulation games, well, there was the theme park. You build your own theme park there. And then I remember trying Total Eclipse Turbo, which is just another upgraded space shooter there. And then Triple Play 97, that was definitely the best baseball game on that era there. So there was a lot of games I actually rented for the PlayStation 1 with the couple of years that I had it there. Now when it comes to the handhelds, the Game Boy and the Game Boy Advance here, I think most of these games were either, there was some color and Advance here. But I remember, there was a trend there in the late 1990s where they made Army Men games. So there was several Army Men games where it was based on those green guys that you see in toy stores, even in the grocery store. So they made some Army Men games there, which was all right. It was fun. It was like neat to see. Oh, that's a new way to look at those Army Men that you see in the bag there. Then there was Conker's Pocket Tales there, which was kind of a cutesy version. Not the Conker Bad Fur Day. This one was the good Conker, but it was on the Game Boy Color format there. And of course you have the Donkey Kong Country, so it was based on the classic from the Super Nintendo, ported onto the Game Boy Advance there. And then there was Perfect Dark, which, yeah, it just didn't translate well from the N64 onto the handheld in my mind. And then I remember playing F-Zero Maximum Velocity. I think that was one of the launch titles as well with the Super Mario Advance there. It was a nice fast-paced game there, but I still like the first original F-Zero for the Super Nintendo there. I couldn't believe I missed this one. Legend of Zelda Minish Cap there. Definitely found a new way to put a spin on the Legend of Zelda there. I believe actually Capcom made this game as well as Capcom made a few, with the Oracle Ages and the Seasons there. But basically, it's, you're a big Zelda and you have a cap and you shrink and you see everything, large there. It's like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or the Micro Machines there. So it was definitely another interesting adventure there. And then you got the Mario Kart Super Circuit there. Can't believe I missed this one, but it kind of was a deep racing Mario Kart game on the go, which I definitely liked there. And it didn't have the exact port from the first Mario Kart game on the Super Nintendo, but it did have tracks based on that there. But it was a very deep game for a handheld here. And then Mario vs. Donkey Kong. Well, there's definitely an update of that from the Game Boy there. It was definitely a fun little adventure there that I played here and there. And then this one was notoriously bad, just how it was executed. But how do you screw up Sonic the Hedgehog? They had Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis there. Man, that was a disappointing game for the Game Boy Advance. I mean, you thought, well, just take Sonic the Hedgehog, put it on the handheld, but it was executed badly where the zoom in, it was laggy, and yeah, and then, the aspect ratio wasn't good. And then the only extra thing that they put in the anniversary edition was they added a spin dash. Whoop-de-doo. That's a one way you could take a classic and destroy it. But where in the 3DS, for example, where you took Star Fox or the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, that's where you take that classic and make it better. In this case, for the Game Boy Advance, they took a classic and made it worse. And it's almost like, how? It's like you have to try to make it worse. But that was the Game Boy Advance here. I mean, it was a very small title there. I only had it for a couple years there. But the N64, I definitely had a massive games that I've tried and owned some. And I also managed to pick up some titles that I touched upon. Just the name didn't come to my mind, obviously, when I was on camera here. But N64, another rare game. That was awesome. It was Blast Corps. I think I remember it was actually ranked on the top 100 Electronic Game Monthly, where they had like the best games of all time. That game was on there, and yeah, it was definitely on there. Of course, I had to mention Gex 64, which is based on the PlayStation version there. I mean, it's the same game, but it was definitely great on there as well. And then here's an underrated game that I actually owned, and I forgot to mention, is Space Station Silicon Valley. And I definitely recommend that game. I mean, it's underrated. It doesn't get as much attention there, but I remember your chip there. If I remember there, and you control different animals in this game on different worlds, and it's definitely an underrated game. I forgot to mention that. So Space Station Silicon Valley. It's definitely worth emulating right now. And then, of course, Army Men Sarge Heroes, going back to the Army Men craze that briefly, was big 20 years ago. And I couldn't believe I missed this game, but I actually, for a guy, and one of my favorite cars, and one of my dream cars that I'd have that, is the original Volkswagen Beetle. But there was Beetle Adventure Racing, when the new Beetle, not the new Beetle, but the new Beetle that came out in 1998. Sorry, the story off of the new there. You know what I'm trying to say there. When it came out in around 1998 there was a cutesy adventure racing game that featured nothing but the new Volkswagen Beetle. So that definitely was a fun game there. And of course, there was Bomberman 64 there. You know, just basically an updated version from the. It had a little bit of adventure mode to it, so it definitely built upon the classic game there. And then Bust a Move, well, there was many iterations of that, so it just added on, had more graphics there. Of course, the Conqueror's Bad Fur Day. that's a badass game. Enough to put an M rating on it for mature. Yes. And then Destruction Derby 64. I feel like the original version on the PlayStation was better. So, and then Sight Bite 64. I still like the original version better. And then there was F1 Pole Position there. It was another Formula 1 game on the Nintendo 64. That was pretty good. And then the FIFA 98 Road to the World Cup there. I actually owned that game, and I liked that game and how deep it was. And you know, you can pick any country there. I mean, I have a couple FIFA games, but you know, I eventually made it where I had Canada win the World Cup in that, and that's the only time I've seen Canada win the World Cup is in that game. And I could dream. It'd just be crazy if it happened one time that Canada wins the World Cup of soccer. That would be funny, but don't think it'll ever happen in my lifetime here, even if I live to be 10,000 years old. Now, the next one, there was the GT64 Championship Edition, and I mentioned there was many racing games on this platform here, and some are good and some are not so good. And then I gotta mention this for sentimental reasons, and I'm gonna say thoughts and prayers to Kobe Bryant, his family, and everyone else that was on the helicopter there. But this also got me thinking. He broke into the league as an 18-year-old, and actually, he was a good NBA game. Kobe Bryant NBA courtside there, so I had to put that play in there. It just worked out that way. That unfortunately the tragic accident happened where him and his daughter were on that helicopter ride. Plus, I think there was 9 people on there. But so thoughts, prayers, and it's a shame. Died pretty young, but I remember playing that game. It was a fun NBA game featuring Kobe Bryant. There was that Major League Baseball game that featured Ken Griffey Jr. I mentioned that in the previous video when I talked about the N64. But yeah, those guys were huge marketing there. And then there was a Magical Tetris Challenge that had the Disney in it. So, I mean, there was definitely many. And I forgot to list it on here, but I remember it right now, was Milo's Astro Lanes. That definitely was a fun space bowling game. Of course, I had to play that as a guy who has bowling in his blood here. And then Mario Party. I mean, there was several games there. 1 and 2 were definitely the best ones, and you know, how many times can they rehash a Mario Party game at this point? I mean, of course, then I loved watching the memes on this platform where there's a Luigi wins by doing absolutely nothing there. So yeah, that's where the Mario Party started. But I think, you know, I think just like The Simpsons, I think it's time to end it. There's just only so many, and you know, it's fun to play as well. But yeah, there's just too many Mario Party games. And then of course there was the Nagano Winter Olympics. You know, competing events there. And then this game was disappointing. Quest 64. It was an RPG game, and then I remember South Park, the very merry South Park games there. There was that one adventure game where you have to worry about turkeys and throwing snowballs at it. So yeah, and then the Star Wars game. Well, that Star Wars game that I had, the name slipped on mine was Shadows of the Empire. That was definitely kind of a mix of the Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And then there was Rogue Squadron, which definitely was another. That was at the time when the original trilogy was celebrating their 20th anniversary and got released in theaters and were digitally remastered. And that definitely by far is the best Star Wars trilogy there. And I'm only a casual Star Wars fan there. It's better than the prequel trilogy, and I haven't even dare watch the modern trilogy. That's Disney owns. But I got those. And of course, well, yeah, I think I already mentioned it, but there's Tetrisphere. I definitely love that Tetris game beyond the classic form there. And then there was very many Turok games. Turok the Dinosaur Hunter. There was a nice trilogy of that. I think the first one was... I remember I liked how that first one started, where you're just running and you're stabbing. Turok, that was definitely an underrated series there. That definitely worth checking out, especially if it's in the bargain bin, or you can emulate it now. But Turok the Dinosaur Hunter. I mean, it was definitely a nice hunting game. Kind of had that Doom shooter in it. And then another one here, Jet Force Gemini. That's an underrated game. I mean, it's a very deep game. I only rented it, but Jet Force Gemini. Of course, being a proud Gemini myself, that appealed to me. Of course, there's Virtual Chess, Virtual Pool. I mean, Virtual Chess definitely, almost made it almost unnecessarily where you're so close and you see the pieces and that, but it was just how they presented that game. And then there was Wayne Gretzky's hockey. It was just the way how it was presented and just looked weird. And I liked hockey in the purest form possible for when it comes to a game, but it was all right. I know there was that Nagano hockey tournament, was just based on that same thing, which, I mean, it's all right. I'd still rather play the NHL games, which is more realistic. And then the Wet Tricks, I was so-so on that. I mean, it was kind of playing on that. Oh yeah, the other game that I remember that went back to the Nintendo was that Hatrix, which was kind of a Hatris, I should say. Yeah, I mean, there was Tetris, and now you got Hatris, and then you got Wet Tricks. And I remember it was like you trying to build up caverns and lakes and that, and I don't know, I was so-so with that game. I think it was reviewed better, but I never owned it, but I might have more fun playing it now. I think it's just the way it was presented, and could be annoying. And then there was Win Back. That was definitely an underrated shooter game, strategic shooter game. And I'm not too sure if I mentioned Wipeout 64. Basically, it's the same formula from the PlayStation games, and it had a awesome electronic soundtrack there. And then there was Yoshi's Story, which I criticized that game that it didn't go through all the levels. It was too short. It was definitely very sugary there, but there was that. And then there was World Driver Championship there. There was definitely a lot of racing games here where you're... And then other than Mario Golf and Mario Tennis, there wasn't too many golf games, but then there was the Waialae Country Club, which is in Hawaii there. I think when it comes to golf, you have to play Mario Golf. That was probably the best golf game on there. And then there was Top Gear Overdrive. There was definitely some extreme racing games there. Of course, there was a Ridge Racer 64, which is based on that same formula that Namco has. And then there was another Rampage World Tour, which I still like the original Rampage on the NES that I remember. And then there was actually Pokemon Snap. I mean, it's just you taking pictures, but I was only not a huge Pokemon fan, but you got that. And then it kind of plays it nicely here. It was another puzzle game that's a little underrated, and the fact we had Jerome McGinley still rising. Iggy's Rocking Balls. Remember that game? That was definitely an interesting game. And then there's another extreme racing game called the Automobile Lamborghini. So you get to drive the Lamborghini, virtually. And then there was that game that I remember was mentioning treats and that. It was called Chameleon Twist. So I kind of mentioned it, but I didn't remember the title there. So that was all. I mean, I rented a lot of N64 games despite only having it for a few years there. So now to continue on here for the GameCube here, there was a couple games that I had and traded in. Well, this one's an underrated Crash Bandicoot game, The Wrath of Cortex. It's an okay. I mean, I remember buying it at the bargain bin there. I still prefer the original one on the PlayStation there, the original games. But the Crash Bandicoot Wrath of Cortex was on all the platforms at this era here. Of course, Crazy Taxi. Oh, I mean, that's the Sega classic there. I remember playing it more in the arcade there. But yeah, it's a crazy and it's taxi. And then there was Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, because There was a time where it had the Congos, and there was just a musical play-along game there. And then there was Donkey Konga, which kind of tied that in with that Congo beats, but eventually that game gets old and boring after a while. And then I remember playing F-Zero GX, which kind of just another update from the original F-Zero there. And then there was some couple, they were still trying to capitalize from the success from GoldenEye on the N64. There was GoldenEye Rogue Agent. I mean, nothing ever can top the James Bond GoldenEye from the N64, but it was alright. It wasn't the same. Then there was a couple James Bond games. There was Everything or Nothing and then Agent Under Fire there. I mean, they were good, cheaper James Bond games with the same kind of, you know, shooter where you advance your missions and that. It was presented very well, especially Everything or Nothing there. I think Electronic Arts made those games. And then I had Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. I never played the original Paper Mario on the N64, which I heard that was a great game, but that was after when I moved on for the N64. But Paper Mario: Thousand Year Door was okay. And then I moved on from the PlayStation, but I want to eventually play the original Spyro games, and I think they were actually going to make an updated one that eventually would go out on the Switch. But I did have Spyro Enter the Dragonfly. It was a bargain bin game. It eventually was the player's choice, but it was alright. And of course I had the Super Monkey Ball games, which I'm not too sure if I mentioned that in a previous video. But definitely, had the same puzzles there. And then the one game I had was the NBA Street V3, version 3. That one had the Nintendo exclusive characters there. It was fun for a while until eventually played it out. And then, of course, I had that Strike Force Bowling, which was just a bowling game. I always have bowling games in there. And now for the last two systems here that I don't have as many because I didn't have as much on those systems. Plus, you don't have as much time to play as you get older. And I still have the collection here. But the Wii, I remember actually having the Wii re-release the Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. But this time it was just the controllers there. Actually, I felt that game was a lot better because it was less clunky. You didn't have the bongos anymore. Then I had the Wii Fit, but I played that and traded that in. And then I had the, Sonic Black Knight and Sonic and the Secret Rings there, which is definitely a different. It was only exclusive on the Wii there. And then I remember actually also having Shadow the Hedgehog. And then the last one I had Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz, which was all right. It just kind of was an extension from the GameCube ones. And then the last one for the DS, they only know the couple games that I had that I traded in. I had the GoldenEye Rogue Agent on DS, which is from the same as the GameCube game. And then that was that Yoshi's Touch and Go there. So those are all the game memories that I have that I remember, and all the titles that I've had there. So yeah, there was definitely a lot more titles there. However, I mean, since the fact that I don't have as much time to play and, you got more important things to pay for as you get older and more responsibilities. But I'm still on the fence on, maybe the Nintendo Switch. I'm not too sure if I'll ever pick one up. Because it's now 3 years, and then I watched Review Tech USA, and he says that's his favorite console of all time. I mean, I'm still the most nostalgia for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Second, I would have to say, is the Nintendo 64. And then the third place would have to be the 16-bit, the Sega Genesis, and the Super Nintendo there. And I'm just not going to rate them all here, but he says the Nintendo Switch in there, and it seems to cater towards, maybe people like me that are always on the go and too busy. But the fact that I also take public transit and I don't want to carry it with me, and as well the games there, so that's why I never bothered picking it up. And now with more emulation being more appealing, and I like those older games, it's easier to just put it on a smartphone. Everyone's got a smartphone now, but I not too sure if I'll ever get a Switch. And then it's almost getting to the point where we're almost getting to the next edition of the next generation of the console here, that it might be worth waiting until I go into that next iteration, the next generation. But if I haven't played any of my games that I still have now, what are the chances of me suddenly buying a Switch and playing it? And And a lot of it is just going to be reliving those games that I can somehow do by emulation here. Because the one thing that they now sell on, and it's going to be an inevitability, is cloud gaming. And one advantage would be is I can play the game anywhere, I can download it anywhere. But then the problem is what happens if suddenly the game's gone or the server is gone? All that time and money you invested in, you don't have it anymore. I'd like to be able to still have a way where I can still have the game, not necessarily in physical form, because we're starting to get away from that. Same with music and movies and videos. They're all digital and have it all online there. But I'd like to be able to still have it if anything happens. And obviously all the videos I make after I get rid of the raw file and edit it and put it all together, that's the file that I save because it's all my work and I want to hang on to it. Mention when it's all on there, but the thing that I hear that they have on the Switch and all other modern systems is that they release games in bunches and you have to pay a subscription instead of downloading the game and having it. So I don't know, but it's definitely inevitable that eventually cloud games is going to be, and eventually home consoles is going to be a thing of the past, and that's the future that I see here. And this is still worth having, and it's still worth having emulation, and you should, gravitate more to it so you can preserve the history. And that's why I have these gaming memories, is I want to try to preserve the history of the games that I have, because a lot of games definitely have influenced, my outlook on things. And, I get more out of a video game in a movie than I do in a book and that. That's just how my mind works. But, that's basically all my gaming memories overall here. It's just, I would say it's a phase, but it's just when I decided to make topics here, and I picked, I'll talk about gaming memories, and then it just spawned into more videos that I've obviously made here. But I'm not going to say this is going to be the last time I'm going to talk about gaming on my personal vlogs here. But these are all the memories that I have, and these are all the titles that I have. So hopefully I've covered well over 90% of all the game memories I have of all the systems I've had here. I didn't own all the systems here. I had no desire to get the Wii U, partly, getting older, not as much time, and more important things you got to pay for, and the economy has also been tough. But I heard the Wii U wasn't as good of a system, and that's the thing. I didn't have a Saturn or a Dreamcast, as I heard Sega was on its way down, and Sony at the time was the better console. And I had my love-hate with the first PlayStation, but I understand it gotten better after the 2, 3, and I heard that one thing that Sony did that they probably forgot to do, and the fourth one was backward compatibility, which is preserving history there. But it's just all the future possibilities I think I can go with gaming here, and I don't know. I'm just intrigued how the future goes. And let's say if I ever get to retire and have some more time, I get told by people that are retired that you think you have more time, and in fact you have less time. I said, I'm going to say, you still have more time than I do, and I work. But that's another story there. But will I be a gamer as you get older? That's one of those things that's intriguing. As you get older, is that when we all of a sudden become the seniors, and is that how we're going to entertain ourselves? And the other thing is, now there's a more variety of music, especially I like the hip hop. I would be intrigued if I would get old and gray, and then have the kids today say, "Ew, you like that?" Same with the games. But that's, I think, wrapping up my gaming memories. But there's definitely obviously going to be more videos and more personal vlogs here. But I just had a bunch of gaming memory there, and it's all going to be in this playlist. But if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, home of the Flames, Stampeders, Hitmen, and Roughnecks here, where I mostly talk about Calgary sports, game recaps, stories, and that. Just make sure you hit like, subscribe. I also do the personal vlogs that I'm just doing right now, and attempt at comedy, and share my experiences, let's say, at a sporting event, say at a football game or when I'm on holidays there, especially if I'm out there in Mount Robson, my favorite spot to go in the King Rockies, where it was a clear, beautiful day and you see the whole mountain. That spoiled me. Spoiled me, Mother Nature. That sounds like anything you want to watch. It's all on this channel. So make sure you hit like, subscribe to follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey here. And so yeah, hopefully it provided a lot of good, maybe bad, or indifferent gaming memories here with this video, and as well as my previous videos here. And I definitely was in a series within a series here. So yeah, as I say, well, go Stamps go. And there's definitely going to be some more Calgary Stampeders news here, as it's almost free agents frenzy time, and I'll bring updates on that. And I definitely have more Calgary sports content to come here, and there's obviously going to be oodles of more personal vlogs and attempt to comedy here in the future. So thanks for watching and follow along, and I'm definitely liking slowly how I'm growing on this platform here, and just want to keep that going. Definitely be nice to get past the 1,000 mark and 4,000 watch hours, so I can get going and be in that next tier level there. So as I say, happy gaming, and I'll see you in the next video. And I'm sure I'll talk gaming more in the future, but this is definitely a lot of it right now to take in. So I'll see you in the next video.